Nonsense.
Then coming about you, about myself, my name is Anand, and I am your trainer. I generally train on cloud, both Azure and AWS, both Azure services and AWS services, along with the DevOps, including Docker and Kubernetes as well. Okay, then I also teach data science as well. Okay, and in this curriculum, we are going to cover with AWS DevOps. Okay, so generally, whenever we cover DevOps, I always cover the cloud part also. Okay, DevOps is not just learning about DevOps tools; it is also including the cloud part. So I always now in when it's AWS DevOps, I'm going to cover the basic foundation services of AWS and then move into the DevOps syllabus. Okay, let me
Okay.
share you my screen. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, see in a minute.
Yeah. Now I can see.
Okay. Okay. Once we start about DevOps, what exactly is a DevOps is all about? Okay. Many people says it's a process and it's mix of some tools. Okay. But what I would say is generally it will be one process how we automate the software life cycle. Okay. Before I go and explain the DevOps process, I'm going to explain you what is the basic software life cycle. Okay. So it starts with a client, like any software requirement will start with a client who has a requirement to develop something. It can be development of an app or development of a website. So what does it happen is he will contact with a IT company. So in the IT company, it can be through business analyst. There will be a sales team, and through business analyst, this client on his requirement, he will meet the business analyst, and that will lead to the solution architect. Of course, solution architect, project manager, product owner, these are different sorts of high level roles based on the company portfolio. These things will change. But for now, let's say they have come and met the solution architect about their requirements. Now, solution architect is going to design the project. Like he may say, okay, to complete this project in 6 months or phase one in 6 months, we need to start with Java. I'm just giving one example. Okay, Java and database as Postgres and cloud we can use as AWS and rest of all the things like front end what we are going to use and back end database and all those things. He is going to design the architect the application, and then he is also going to specify like I may need 20 people team, out of which there can be developers, testers, a cloud engineer or DevOps engineer or everyone. Okay. Now, very first step which is going to happen is the coding part. So once everything is settled, the analysis of the requirements and everything has been started, it will start with the coding part. Then there is a build part of the application. Then it will move to the publish part. Then deployment. So from publish, we can push this to a stage called artifact. Okay. Then this artifact will be deployed into multiple environments. Like we can say the test environment first and then the production environment. When it is on the test environment, there will be multiple iterations on the testing of this project. So in case of issues, it will go back to the coding stage again. The developers will fix it and it will come back into the same cycle into the testing again. So after a few iterations, This will be passed, all the requirements are met, and it will be deployed to production. Once it is deployed to production, it is available for the end users. Now there is also a monitoring stage. Now, so this is basically a standard life cycle of a software, right? This is the same process which used to happen like 10 years back or 20 years back. Basically, this DevOps has come into the picture in last, say, approximately some 15 years. Before that, we still used to deploy the project, build the projects, correct? So the process won't change. In the DevOps, what it is going to change is the tools we use and the automation process will speed up the application, will speed up the process. So to explain this a little bit better, what I will do is I will take a sample code and I tell you how the regular process will happen. Then we will try to replicate the same thing in the CI/CD pipeline also. Okay. In this example, I am going to take a .NET project. Okay, this is a very sample .NET project I have with me. Let this get loaded. Okay, so this is the project, .NET project, and to start with, in a manual process, I'm not going into the DevOps process yet. In a manual process, what will happen? The developer will start testing it on, I mean, on local. He will check the code, whether it is working fine or not. Yes, it is working fine without any errors. Then the next step, what he is going to perform is, as I told you, there is a build stage. What is this build process is all the existing code along with the runtimes and the dependency libraries put together will run as a single project. That is a build stage. Okay. So all these files along with the dependencies and all the libraries related to .NET is going to run together as an application. So if you observe here, build has completed. Always remember one thing, if your build is not successful in your local machine, then it is going to fail even in any other environment if you promote it. So make sure that all your local code is going to build successfully. So if any issues are found here, you need to fix it and then move further. Now that build is completed, the next step will be the publish code. What do you mean by publish code is this code, I need to give some deployment package to get it deployed into some environment. So creation of that package. See, this step of build and this step of publish will vary for the project to project. Java projects has a different method and Python projects has a different method. So currently we are going with a .NET project. So I'm going with these steps. Now I'm going to publish this code. So this is a publish. I am going to publish button. So the publish version of this code is going to be saved into this location, bin release .NET 6.0 and publish. So this is the code, which is the publish version of our application. Okay. Just to show you once again, I will delete this folder. I will go back and hit the publish. So for this project, what is the published version I am going to get? So these are the files which are needed to be handed over to the deployment team. So these files are needed for someone to deploy this project into any other environment. Now, see, we have a code, we have built it, then published it. In the publish stage, I got some files. In a manual process, what we do is we are going to zip this file. We are going to get the zip of this folder, and that folder will be emailed to the deployment team, or we will place it in a shared location, and they are going to deploy it into the server. That is a manual process. I am not yet talking about DevOps at all. Okay. So I try to show an example of manual process. So once I got this publish files, what I need to do is I have to deploy this into a web server, because this is a web application. I'm going to deploy it into the web server. In my laptop, I have already IIS configured, so I can deploy it on my laptop and show it to you. Okay. So I will just go to IIS. When we start our regular class, I will cover with installation of IIS and configuring the necessary softwares required for deploying any project. I will cover that as well. But today I am just showing you what we are going to do when it comes to deployment of web application. So this is the IIS server which is already configured, and I have a demo website here. I will teach you how to set this up and everything detailed in our class. But at this moment, we will see the settings here. Basically, what we have to do is when we configure a website, okay, there will be a physical path. This is a virtual directory actually. So, and in this path, we need to place our code files. The published output is there, right? That files I need to place it in this location so that this website will run successfully. Now I will go to that path here. That is C inetpub w3 root demo. This is that folder. So what I am going to do, I am going to clean up this folder. I have some published files, latest published files, right? So I'm going to copy those files and place it in location. All right. So we are ready. Now I will go back to my IIS, where this is the my website, and I can browse my application in this URL. So this is now deployed successfully. So this is the manual process. Just to summarize everything, what we did is in local, I have opened a .NET project, build it, publish it, then that artifact, the build artifact which we got, right, the release files, I have transferred it into some location where IIS has been configured with the virtual directory. So my application got deployed as a website. This is currently localhost because I am doing everything in my laptop. But otherwise, if we have configured this in DNS, we will get our website like www.demowebsite.com. So that we need to map it. Okay. So this is the manual process which we follow. Now, when it comes to pipeline, the same manual process has to be automated at every stage. Okay. So for each stage, we have some different automation tools and different tools we use. For example, for the coding stage, this is the stage where you have your source code repositories like your GitHubs, GitLab, or it can be Azure repo, AWS repo, or Bitbucket, anything it can be. So all these are source code repositories. It is not necessary that you should learn each and every source code repository, but I would suggest at least one of them will serve the purpose. So if you know GitHub, that will be well and good. Even in our classes, I am going to give the classes on GitHub only. Okay. Now comes to the build stage. So for the build stage and publish stage, when it comes to AWS DevOps, the build and publish will happen in a single stage. It happens in a stage called build project, build stage. Then this artifact stage, the publish files, the folder which has got created here, this will be moved into artifact stage. Later, we need to create some AWS services. So to deploy this project, you need some compute servers, right? It can be EC2 instance or it can be Elastic Beanstalk. These are the services which we can use for deployment of our code. Elastic Beanstalk, or if it is a container, if you have containers, then you need to use Elastic Container Service. Or if you are using Kubernetes, then you need to push it into Elastic Kubernetes Service. So any of these will work. Where you want to deploy, it depends on your architecture, whether you are going to deploy it in EC2 instance or Elastic Beanstalk, ECS, EKS, you need to make a call as per your architecture. So that is the reason I was saying you need to have some basic knowledge on foundation AWS services also. Otherwise, if you just focus on learning AWS to DevOps tools, you end up missing these things. What are they? What are the configurations we need to create?
So
How
my
to set?
apologies.
Yeah.
My apologies. So the life cycle would be from the S3 bucket to the EKS, right?
It again,
S3
it again depends.
S3 bucket would hold your code base, and then you would publish it via EKS. And then Route 53 would be your DNS or reroute, right?
Yeah. One of
Okay.
the solution is what you said. Okay. Sometimes we place our source code in S3 bucket. Sometimes complex projects, we won't keep it in S3 bucket. Instead, we go for GitHub. Okay.
Okay,
If
because
you
like
are,
my current project that I'm working on, I publish to the GitHub, but when I elevate it in S3.
yeah, that's what it depends on project to project and architecture. It depends. Okay. Yeah, what you
Okay,
said is
okay.
correct. S3 bucket. And sometimes we push our architecture, sorry, artifacts into S3 bucket. And when it comes to Docker, we won't push the Docker image into S3 bucket. We will push it into Elastic Container Registry.
Okay.
So when we will run on multiple varieties of projects. I will take up at least 5, 6 varieties of project where in a first scenario, as you said, the source code will be in S3 bucket and we push everything deployment also we can do it in S3 bucket if it's a static website, right? Similarly, this kind of projects like a .NET project where I will use GitHub and then the build publish will happen S3 bucket. We are going to save the publish files. Then I will deploy it into Elastic Beanstalk. Then I take up some other project which is a simple index.html is there, okay, or Node.js project is there. There again, I can save it in GitHub, then do all this stuff S3 bucket and I deploy it into EC2 instance. In the next example, I will take the similar same project, but I will push it into the container registry and deploy it into Kubernetes once, ECS once. So in our whole journey, we are going to do multiple types of projects. Not just that, okay? We also have to study some tools like Terraform, Ansible, Docker and Kubernetes I am going to teach along with this. Along with AWS syllabus and DevOps syllabus, I am going to cover these four. Of course, it includes Helm charts and Prometheus. So I am going to cover all these things. So when these tools comes into the picture, okay, your pipeline also will change. When I said this life cycle of a web application, I did not include Terraform, Ansible or anything. But when Terraform and Ansible comes into the picture, we need to make certain changes, or we need to have a separate pipeline for that. So we are going to cover all these things when we start our journey day to day, right? So because I said that, I just want to cover this diagram. This is very important diagram when it comes to the DevOps. I have a better diagram actually. See, so DevOps will start with like this: a planning stage, code, build, test, release, deploy, operate, monitor, and again planning stage. So this is actually a cycle. The development process will never end. So you complete the project and you deploy it into the production. There is always your client is going to come up with new updates. He wants some enhancement and he wants some bug fixes also to be done. So that is the reason it's a never ending cycle process. DevOps is a never ending process. It keeps on happening. And there is different stages, and each stage we have different tools as well. So for the coding and the source code management, some people will use GitHub, some people will use Jira, Confluence, and for build there are Maven, then MS Build is there. For a testing purpose, Selenium, JUnit testing. Release there is Jenkins. Then for deployment you have Cloud, Docker. Then for the infrastructure as code tools, we have Ansible, Chef, Terraform. Then Kubernetes is also there for the container orchestration. Then for monitoring, you have Splunk, Datadog, and even Prometheus is there. See, there are so many tools available and new things keeps on coming. Still, there are more than this where the source code scanning tools are there. All vulnerability management tools are there, right? So there are so many tools which we use. It depends, like project to project and company to company, they keep changing these tools in their architecture. But one thing I suggest you, no need to know each and every tool which appear here. There are multiple tools here. So for example, monitoring. You have almost 10 different monitoring tools available in the market. No need to learn all the 10 monitoring tools. If you know one or two, it's enough. The reason is no company will use all the tools. So some company will use Datadog and some company will use something else like that. So some company will use Chef and some company will use Ansible. So no need to know each and every tool. We can learn certain tools selectively. Then if any new tool comes into the market, along with the company, we need to learn and adjust to it, right? Because I seen some people who will learn all the tools available in the market. So by the time they learn everything and get into the job, the new tools will come, right? So just have a thought on that. No need to learn each and everything. Same with cloud also. Many people will get confused and learn AWS, Azure, and GCP, all three. No need to know all three actually. You just know one cloud service, it's enough. The second and the other cloud services are all same. Whatever AWS provides, Azure and GCP also will provide it, almost same. There may be configuration differences. There may be one or two tools, one or two services differences will be there. Otherwise, the basic tools, they won't change, right? So in our journey, we are going to go with AWS only, right? Then what are the things you need to learn to become a DevOps engineer? So these are the things which are expected from you. Basic programming skills, then some system administration related concepts, then cloud knowledge, then you should have a knowledge on containers and orchestration. I have listed even here. So version controlling like Git, TFS, Apache Subversion, or uh, GitLab, any one of them you know it, that is well and good. Then integration tools, then the automation platforms, monitoring tools, cloud infrastructure, container orchestration tools. So out of all these things, each category, one or two tools you have a knowledge that will be enough for you to get into the job market, right? Because some companies will use Azure, some companies will use AWS. Now I just jump into the AWS screens. I will just go through with the AWS screen with couple of services I will create here just to give an idea what are the important services available and what are the uh, tools we come across in the DevOps. Okay, so the DevOps menu will come with code pipeline. So if you go to the code pipeline here, you get to see the menu. So in the code pipeline menu, you see the source, code commit, artifact, build, deploy, and pipeline. So individually, you need to set up each and everything. So the build, the deploy, and the pipeline, artifact, source, everything you need to set up step by step. Just for the demo purpose, because I ran the build process of this project, I will try to set up the code build here. I will go through quickly how to set up a code build, and with the code build, how we are able to generate the same set of files what we generated manually. Okay, I will just go to a build project. So build, create project. I will give some name. So default project and the source. So to build a project, I need to give a source code, correct? Now the source code options are here. You can have your code in GitHub, GitHub Enterprise, Bitbucket, GitLab, S3. You said right? S3 bucket is also there. So you can place your code in S3 bucket as well. So currently, I will go with my code in GitHub. So when you are doing it first time, you need to authorize it with your GitHub credentials. Once it is done, you get to see all the repositories in your account. So these are repositories in my account, and I will take the same repository of the project which I ran locally. Okay, demo app, and I think this is also a demo app. I will take the same thing. Okay, now let's move on with the. So I have given for the build project where is my source code. I have specified where is my source code, and I can even give the version also. But currently, I am just leaving it so that the latest version it will take. Now, single build or batch build, I will go with a single build now. And on the build environment, see, there are certain options. These options we will go back in detail when we cover this class. But at this moment, what are these options are is we need some compute engine for the build to happen. When I did this on my local laptop, there is a laptop on which this Visual Studio is running for the build. But for pipeline, what is there? I did not create any EC2 instance or I did not create any virtual machine. Actually, there will be a temporary server or temporary agent which will be created by pipeline. So that configurations we are going to provide here. So it's on-demand type, EC2 instance. What is the OS? Everything I have specified here. We will come back into this later when we come to the classes. Now I need to give the service role also. Service role is very important where with this service role, we are going to set the permissions for this pipeline to access S3 bucket or to access any other service for the build. So that is the reason you need to have a role. Either you can ask AWS to create a new role or existing service role also you can use. Currently, I'm going with creating new role. Then for the build, see anything which is going to get automation, it needs some script. Means you need to tell the system these are the steps you need to perform. So similarly, for the build to happen, we need to specify the commands. What are all the build commands to be executed? We can write those commands here, or we can write a file called build spec file and have that in your repository along with your code. So the file name is buildspec.yaml. See, when we start DevOps, most of the times we get to come across this YAML files. So having a basic YAML knowledge is necessary. I will give a introduction class to YAML. Okay. So here the buildspec.yaml file will have all the instructions related to the build. Now I'm just skipping the configuration here. Now artifact. So in a manual process, these files got created and I have copied them into wherever I need to deploy. But when it is happening in a pipeline, we need to save these files somewhere, right? Obviously in AWS, S3 is the S3 bucket is the service where we have to save any files or it's a service for storage. Okay? It's again optional. If you don't have any artifacts in your project, you can say no artifact, but I have it. So I am saving this in my S3 bucket. I need to specify which S3 bucket I have to save. I am going ahead and saving in this S3 bucket. For now, I won't give any names and everything, but I just ask a zip file is needed. So what exactly I am doing is I am asking this build project to build my project, which is in GitHub, and whatever the publish files has generated, save those files in the S3 bucket. That is what the steps I have configured till now. Logs, by default, the logs are saved in code, CloudWatch logs. Okay, CloudWatch is a service which is a centralized monitoring and logging service in AWS. Okay, anyway, I'm not going to change too many details here. I will just create a build project. Now, just to show you, I will go to my GitHub. This is the demo app. So very important thing here is you need to have build spec.yaml file. If this file is not available in your repository, it means there is no instructions ready for the build stage to run. So the build stage will fail. I have my build spec.yaml. I will walk you through these commands first. Before that, I want to run it and see if my build is successful or not. Okay. Now I will start a build. And meantime, I will open my build spec.yaml. See, buildspec.yaml file, it's a very simple YAML file which have first is version. This is standard. You have no need to change. Version will be version 0.2 and it has phases. What are the phases available are install phase, pre-build, build, and you can also have your post-build. Currently in this example, you don't have post-build, but you can have. Now, there is also to artifact section in the ending. Now, I told you the agent will be a EC2 instance which is started temporarily by build project, correct? But to build this .NET project, you need to have .NET 8 inside the agent. That is the reason you are giving install stage. So in the install, you are specifying install .NET 8.0 in that agent. Then comes the pre-build stage. In the pre-build stage, this is a .NET restore command. So first you are going to run the restore command to clean up the previous build. Then in the build stage, you are running the .NET build command. So this is .NET build command is the CLI command which we generally use, and I have written the same thing. Just observe closely. .NET build on demo app.cs project. There is a CS project file in your repository. On that file, you need to run the .NET build. That is what I did here manually. This is the demo app.cs project. So I have run the build on demo app.cs project. Similarly, in your source code, there will be somewhere demo app.cs project. See here, it is here. So on the CS project, you are running the build. Restore and build. Now publish is also same .NET publish, and you can specify demo app.cs project. But what is this -o/build output is when you complete a publish process, you are going to get these files, correct? These files, I am giving a command -o is out. So you output all those files into build output. And in the next stage, whatever files in the build underscore output, you move into the artifact. And artifact, you saw the settings, right? I have created a S3 bucket and configured this artifact should be moved into that S3 bucket. Now let's go back to our build project. So it has got successfully built. And we can see the logs as well here. So if you observe cleanly, you get to see the stages what you have written. Selecting .NET runtime version 8.0, installing 8.0, and then you are doing your phase. Install phase is over. Then .NET restore command, .NET restore command executed. Then .NET build command. It ran successfully. .NET publish command, and then towards the end, this is all steps related to uploading to your artifacts. And in the last step, you get to see that upload artifact state got successful. So these are the logs. If any issue is there or anything is there is a build failure is there, we get to see here why it has got failed. So we need to go ahead and fix it. Now that this is successful, how can I check that whether the all the process has got completed or not is I have given upload artifacts to S3 bucket, right? So I can go to S3 bucket now. And I think some my code, something. This is the my code S3. In here, I have, we can find, see here, this file, May 8th, 7:42, just now, like 5 minutes back. So artifact file has got created. I will just look into it and I will download also just to compare what are the files inside. These are same files compared to what is generated manually. So this proves that whatever the manual steps we are following, we are able to generate it through the pipeline as now. I will go back here. So individually, we need to set up code commit, code build, then code deploy. After that, I need to go back to my pipeline and I need to put all the three stages one by one. So source, build, approval is there, and then deployment is there. This is how a typical pipeline can be built. The number of stages will increase or decrease. We get additional stages also. Sometimes two build stages will be there. Some people will have an architecture such that Terraform build will be in a separate stage and the application build will be in a separate stage. So in this example, you can see that source code is in code commit, means instead of GitHub, I have used the AWS code commit. I can also save my repository, my files into here. Many repositories are there. For example, if I go and open some repo, sorry, this one does not have anything. This is again similar sort of project. And I can show you another kind of build spec.yaml. See, this stages looks different compared to what we saw here. Here, it is more on .NET related build commands. .NET restore, .NET build, .NET publish. But whereas come here and see, here you are actually building a Docker image, tag the Docker image and push it to the container registry. This was the example I was telling you. Okay. Sometimes you need to push it to S3 bucket. Sometimes you need to push it to ECR. So in this example, I am actually pushing my Docker image into ECR. ECR is actually a container registry. So when we start our classes, we will do all types of examples. So we are going to do a regular example, which I showed you, or we also going to do a Docker example, and then some one is .NET, right? Next one we can do it with a Python code. So according to our project, we need to write our build spec.yaml file. So again, when it comes to the code deploy stage, here you can deploy your application into EC2 instances or Lambda functions, or you can deploy them into Elastic Beanstalk or ECR, ECS, anywhere you can. Even on premises also you can deploy your application. So we get to see these things once we start our journey. And we will also go through the Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, Ansible, and how we write the manually how we get the work done. Then we will try to replicate the same thing using pipeline. So most of the classes I'm going to do both a manual way and a pipeline so that you get to know both of them, just like how I did now. Okay. Now I will stop here and give some time for you to ask any questions. Do you have any questions? Ramesh?
I'm good, Anand.
Yeah, okay. So you are free to ask anything, like you have any specific requirement, or because some people want specific things to be learned or some specific architecture to be learned. If such a scenario is there, you can tell me and we try to build examples around that, or at least one example around that. See, DevOps classes mostly will go with practical things itself. We are going to run daily certain things, and again, you need to keep practicing all those things. Whatever I teach you in this class today, you need to get them practice once. You need to execute it from your side and also come back to the next class. I think if you both have no questions, then we can stop here.
No questions. It was very valuable. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Ramesh.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.